The morning on Maplewood Drive always felt peaceful. Sprinklers clicked across fresh lawns, birds called from the trees, and neighbors followed the same comfortable routine every day. Everything on that street looked perfect, especially Evan Cross. Evan was the kind of neighbor everyone trusted. He jogged every morning, waved to every house, fixed broken fences, carried groceries for the elderly, and organized weekend barbecues. People often said, if only all neighbors were like Evan. When Lena Miller moved in with her 8-year-old son Noah, Evan was the first one at her door. He stood there with a warm pie in his hands and an easy smile on his face. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said. "If you need anything at all, I'm right across the street." Lena thanked him. The street felt safe, calm, exactly what she had hoped for. That feeling disappeared on her very first night. At exactly 2:17 in the morning, Lena woke up to a strange sound. It was the slow scrape of metal against concrete. She stepped out of bed and pulled the curtain aside just enough to look outside. Across the street, Evan's garage light was on. His shadow moved inside, dragging something heavy across the floor. She told herself it was nothing, maybe tools, maybe boxes. But the same sound came again the next night, and the next, always at 2:17. A few days later, the calm of the neighborhood shattered. 16-year-old Marcus Reed vanished after basketball practice. Police cars filled the street. His mother stood crying on the sidewalk, clutching her phone. Neighbors gathered in small, frightened groups. Someone said Marcus had last been seen walking through Maplewood Drive. Evan arrived carrying bottled water, speaking softly to the family, placing a steady hand on Marcus's mother's shoulder. "We'll find him," he said. "This community takes care of its own." Everyone believed him. Lena watched from her porch and felt a strange chill. There was something in Evan's eyes that didn't match the moment. They weren't afraid. They weren't worried. They were calm, almost watchful. That night, when the clock reached 2:17, Lena opened her phone's security camera app. Evan's garage door was half open. His car rolled out slowly. The tires were thick with dark, wet mud. The next day, Lena mentioned the late-night activity to another neighbor. She only laughed. "That's just Evan. He's always fixing things." Lena drove to the police station and carefully asked if anyone on Maplewood Drive had been questioned. The officer shook his head and smiled. "That neighborhood is as safe as they come. Evan Cross has been helping us organize volunteers." When Lena returned home that evening, a sharp chemical smell drifted from Evan's backyard. It was strong and unnatural. When his car left later that night, Lena slipped through the fence and noticed a loose wooden panel beneath his garage. She pulled it aside and found a narrow crawl space underneath. Inside were burned pieces of clothing, a cracked phone, and a small pink bracelet. Her heart nearly stopped. Headlights flashed across the yard. Evan was coming back. She rushed inside her house just as his car pulled into the driveway. That night, her phone buzzed. "Curiosity is dangerous." She did not reply. A few minutes later, slow footsteps approached her front porch. They stopped at her door. The handle did not move. Then the steps faded away. The next morning, the news spread fast. Marcus Reed's backpack had been found in the woods outside town. Parents pulled their children inside. Fear settled over the street. Across the road, Evan stood on his porch, watching Lena's house, smiling. Lena stopped opening her curtains after that morning. She could feel Evan's eyes on her even when she couldn't see him. The street that once felt safe now felt like a stage where everyone was acting and only she knew the script was wrong. Marcus Reed's disappearance became the only thing anyone talked about. Candlelight vigils appeared at the corner of the street. Flyers were taped to mailboxes. Volunteers searched the woods. Evan stood at the center of it all, organizing search groups, comforting parents, speaking to reporters with calm, steady confidence. Lena watched him from her kitchen window, her stomach tight. No one would believe her, not with the way he smiled, not with the way the entire neighborhood leaned on him. She started keeping her own notes, times, movements, smells. Every night at 2:17, something happened. Sometimes it was the garage, sometimes it was his car leaving, sometimes it was nothing at all, and those were the nights that scared her the most. She followed him for the first time on Thursday. Evan left his house just before sunset. Lena waited 30 seconds, grabbed her keys, and drove after him, keeping 2 cars between them. He drove out of the neighborhood, past the school, past the grocery store, and toward the old industrial district at the edge of town. He parked near a line of abandoned warehouses. Lena stopped farther down the road and watched as Evan walked toward one of the buildings, unlocked a side door, and disappeared inside. She waited in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. When he finally came back out, his jacket looked darker, as if it had been soaked in something. He did not notice her car. He drove away. Lena sat there long after his taillights vanished. That night, her phone buzzed at 2:17. "You're getting careless." Her blood turned cold. The next day, she received an email from an unknown sender. It contained a single photo. It was of her son Noah standing at the school gate, taken from across the street. No message, just the photo. She deleted it, then immediately regretted it. She wanted proof, but fear had already taken over her thinking. She picked Noah up early from school and kept him inside for the rest of the day. She locked every door and window. She slept on the couch with the lights on. 2 houses down, Evan stood in his driveway talking to a police officer. She began to realize something terrifying. He was not hiding. He was controlling. Lena decided she needed help, even if no one believed her. She found Detective Aaron Blake's name online. He was one of the officers assigned to Marcus's case. She emailed him from a new account, writing only, "I think I know who took Marcus Reed. Please meet me." They met in a small diner on the edge of town. Lena told him everything: the noises, the crawl space, the burned clothes, the bracelet, the warehouse, the messages, the photo of her son. Blake listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back and studied her for a long moment. "Do you still have the bracelet?" he asked. She shook her head. "I didn't take it. I was scared." "Good," he said quietly. "If you had, you might not be sitting here right now." He asked for her address. When he heard the street name, his jaw tightened. "We've been getting strange tips about that area for years. Nothing solid, just patterns." "About Evan?" she whispered. Blake did not answer directly. "Go home, act normal, don't confront him, and don't let him know we've talked." That night, Evan knocked on her door. Lena nearly dropped the glass in her hand. She opened it slowly. Evan stood there holding a plate of cookies. "You haven't been coming outside much," he said gently. "I was worried." "I've just been tired," she replied. He looked past her into the house. "Where's Noah?" "Upstairs." Evan smiled. "Good. Children should be resting. Big day at school tomorrow." He handed her the plate. His fingers brushed hers. Cold. She closed the door and slid down against it, shaking. At 2:17, the garage door across the street opened. She forced herself to watch. Evan carried a large plastic container to his car and placed it in the trunk. Then he stood very still and looked directly at her window. She stepped back. Her phone vibrated. "You're getting careless." The next morning, Detective Blake called. "We found something under his rose garden," he said. "We're getting a warrant." Before Lena could reply, she heard sirens outside. Police cars filled the street. Officers rushed toward Evan's house. Neighbors poured onto their lawns. Evan was not there. His garage was empty. His car was gone. And Noah's bedroom window was open. Lena ran upstairs so fast she nearly fell. Noah's bed was empty. The blanket lay on the floor. The curtain moved slightly in the open night air, and the window was wide open. She screamed his name. Nothing. Outside, the entire street was chaos. Police officers rushed through Evan's house, while neighbors stood frozen on their lawns. Detective Blake pushed through the crowd and caught Lena as she stumbled out of her front door. "He took him," she said, her voice breaking. "He took my son." Blake's face hardened. "We'll get him back." Inside Evan's house, officers found the crawl space again. This time, they went deeper. They discovered ropes, plastic sheets, medical gloves, sedatives, duct tape, and a small notebook sealed inside a metal box. The notebook contained dates, names, and short notes. One name appeared more than any other: Marcus Reed. They also found a map of the industrial district with several locations circled in red. Meanwhile, traffic cameras captured Evan's car heading toward the old warehouses. Blake ordered a citywide alert. Hours passed with no word. Lena sat in the back of a police cruiser, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the road as if she could will the truth to appear. Her mind replayed every moment she had ignored, every sound at 2:17, every time Evan had smiled at her son. A patrol unit spotted Evan's car near the river just after dawn. Officers moved in quietly. The trunk was empty. The back seat, however, was stained with blood. They followed tire tracks through a service road that led to an abandoned water treatment plant on the edge of the woods. Inside, they found a locked metal door. Behind it, they found Marcus Reed, alive, weak, bound, terrified. He whispered only one thing before passing out: "He's still here." Police spread through the building. At the far end of the tunnels, they found fresh footprints and a door leading into the storm drainage system. Blake went in alone. The tunnel was dark, narrow, the sound of rushing water echoing around him. He followed the trail for nearly half a mile before he saw movement ahead. Evan stood in the tunnel, holding Noah in front of him, one arm around the boy's chest, the other holding a knife. Blake raised his weapon. "Let the kid go." Evan laughed softly. "You know, I worked very hard to become the man everyone trusted." "Put the knife down." "He wouldn't stop watching," Evan said. "His mother wouldn't stop looking. They always start looking." Noah was crying. "Mom!" Blake took one slow step forward. "This doesn't end the way you think." Evan's smile disappeared. "Oh, detective, it already has." He shoved Noah toward Blake and turned to run. Blake caught Noah and fired. The bullet struck Evan's shoulder. He collapsed, screaming, and tried to crawl away. Officers flooded the tunnel moments later. Evan was handcuffed, bleeding, laughing through his teeth. "You were all so easy," he whispered. Back on Maplewood Drive, the neighborhood watched in silence as police escorted Evan past the very people he had protected, comforted, and fooled for years. Lena held Noah so tightly he could barely breathe. In the following days, the full truth emerged. Evan Cross was not his real name. He had been linked to multiple unsolved disappearances across 3 states. He targeted families he trusted. He watched for months, sometimes years. The bracelet Lena found belonged to a girl who vanished 4 years earlier. The rose garden hid another victim. The warehouse contained blood traces from 2 more. Marcus survived. Others did not. Lena testified at the trial. Evan never denied anything. He only stared at her and smiled. When the sentence was read, the courtroom was silent. Life without parole. As officers led him away, Evan looked back at Lena. "You woke up," he said softly. She never responded. Months later, Maplewood Drive was quieter. Evan's house stood empty, windows boarded, grass overgrown. Neighbors avoided walking past it. Lena and Noah moved away, but sometimes late at night, when the world was quiet, Lena still woke at exactly 2:17 a.m., and for a moment she felt like she was still being watched. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Every seat in the courtroom was filled. News vans lined the street outside the courthouse. Reporters whispered about the perfect neighbor who had fooled an entire town, about the quiet mother who had noticed what no one else did, about the children who survived and the ones who did not. Lena testified on the third day. She walked to the stand on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Her hands trembled as she took the oath. When she looked up, Evan was already staring at her. He looked smaller now, no warm smile, no gentle eyes, just a pale man in an orange jumpsuit, his shoulders still stiff from the bullet wound. But his gaze had not changed. It was calm, curious, as if he were still studying her. The prosecutor asked her to describe the nights, the sounds, the garage, the crawl space, the bracelet, the messages on her phone, the photo of Noah at the school gate. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. The courtroom was silent. When she finished, Evan's attorney stood and approached. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "you claim you suspected Mr. Cross for weeks, yet you never went to the police with physical evidence. Isn't it possible you misunderstood normal behavior and created this story out of fear?" Lena looked at Evan. He was smiling. "No," she said, "I didn't imagine any of it." The jury never took their eyes off him again. Marcus Reed testified the following week. He told them about the basement room, the drugs, the ropes, the voices of other children he had heard through the walls at night. When he described Evan's smile, several jurors cried. The medical examiner described the bodies beneath the rose garden, the belongings found in the crawl space, the warehouse stains, the map. The verdict took less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts, life in prison without parole. Evan did not react when the sentence was read. He simply leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Outside the courthouse, families of the victims held one another. Reporters shouted questions. Lena stood behind them all, holding Noah's hand. That night, for the first time in weeks, she slept. 3 months later, Maplewood Drive was a different place. Evan's house was boarded up. His rose garden had been dug out and replaced with bare dirt. The neighborhood never held barbecues anymore. People avoided eye contact. They locked their doors sooner. They stopped assuming. Lena packed their belongings quietly. Noah asked, "Why can't we stay?" She knelt in front of him. "Because some places hold memories that don't let you heal." They left before sunrise. They moved to a small town near the coast. Lena found work at a local library. Noah started a new school. They learned new routines, new streets, new faces. For a while, the nights were peaceful. Then, one night, Lena woke suddenly. She looked at the clock. 2:17 a.m. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Nothing was there. No sound, no footsteps, no light across the street, just memory. Months passed, the nightmares faded, the fear loosened its grip. One afternoon, Lena received a letter from Detective Blake. Inside was a photo of a young girl. The bracelet matched what was found in the crawl space. "They finally identified her," Blake wrote. "Her family has answers now, thanks to you." Lena held the photo for a long time. Sometimes the news would mention Evan's name, appeals denied, prison transfer, another body discovered connected to one of his old aliases, another family given truth. Years later, Noah barely remembered Maplewood Drive. Lena did. Some scars never disappear. But life continued. One spring evening, Lena sat on the porch of her new home, watching Noah ride his bike. The air smelled like salt and fresh grass. The sun dipped below the horizon. For the first time, she felt something close to peace. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. She froze. She opened it. Unknown sender, you were stronger than he was. Her hands shook. She deleted the message, stood up, and went inside. She locked the door, and for the first time in a very long time, she did not look back at the window. The street outside was quiet, safe, and the past, finally, was no longer watching.